The Road Freight Association says it welcomes the announcement by the Transport Minister Barbara Creecy on Transnet's train operating company slot allocation process. The group says the move has the potential to revitalise the country's rail network and reduce congestion on the roads. The Road Freight Association acting CEO Kevin van Merwe joins us now for more on this. Kevin, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on this afternoon. Others are saying, well, these are reforms that have been a long time coming, but finally this is one minister, I suppose, who has really made real headway as far as bringing this particular aspect of reforms into place. What is the benefit of this type of move?
Well, good afternoon, Tabu, and good afternoon to the viewers. Yes, Minister Creecy has definitely been working very, very hard on various initiatives, this being one of them. From the Road Freight Association perspective, we are not oblivious to the developments within the rail space. As you know, Transnet has had challenges in the last couple of years. There have been tremendous losses, I think, in terms of their capacity to carry freight on the rail because of many factors, many of them linked directly to lack of maintenance, budget, and of course vandalism of a lot of the infrastructure that is required to move freight. There has been quite an improvement over the last financial year. Currently, their volumes have been moving in an upward direction. They're currently sitting on 160 million tons, and of course the minister would like to see that improve to 250 million tons within the next 5 years. So we're talking about a time frame of 2030 thereabouts. Now that sounds good, and people often ask, from a road freight perspective, does that not mean that you're going to be losing freight? Well, one of the initiatives is that freight that belongs on rail should move from road to rail. And there is quite a lot of support, even from within the road freight sector, for that, because there is a lot of congestion. We understand that. We all use the roads, and we're not oblivious to that. So there's a lot of scope, I think, for job creation, and the announcement by the minister of these 11 first successful rail transport companies that we refer to them as TOCs, train operating companies, I think is correct terminology, sees the first involvement of the private sector within the freight rail space, dominated by Transnet over the last, who knows, many decades. Of course, one has to ask yourself, why would the road freight sector be so supportive? Well, the reality is, if one looks at the current freight volumes of 1.4 billion tons, we find that the road freight sector in that space where we're talking about land transport is currently moving about 88% thereabouts of all road freight, with less than 12% being carried by Transnet. So there is quite a skewing away from rail to road, and obviously there are reasons for that. So to see the onboarding of 11 train operating companies would also introduce an element of competition within the rail space, which will hopefully ignite a situation whereby the cost of logistics will in fact benefit the downward movement on pricing and costs around logistics.
Right. So I mean, the 11, sorry, Kev, the 11 represent some 20 million tons in terms of appetite. We are sitting at 90 million tons. So 20 million tons is way off to the 90 million tons that we certainly should be bringing on board to get us to the 250 where the minister would like to see us. So with this almost pilot phase, what would the industry like to see happen procedurally in this process, I suppose, that could garner the appetite for more so that we can quickly shoot up to get to that 90 million tons?
Well, Tobo, this is the first 11 I think there were 25 companies that showed interest in the program and becoming involved. Of course, there's still some of the framework issues, contracting issues, and other aspects like the bringing into effect of the various regulations of the economic regulation of transport that will also have a slowing down effect on this initial, inclusion of this capacity that you're referring to. And remember, as you quite correctly put it, the minister wants to see 90 million tons of improvement, which is significant. We're talking almost 56% increase on the current volumes by the end of 5 years. 20 million is not going to do it, but it is a move in the right direction. But also consider it's not only rail volumes that are going to increase. We've got a growth rate of between 6.2 and 6.8% in land freight movement year on year. And that's a compound rate. Now, if we look at it simplistically and say, well, worst case scenario, it's going to be around 30% over the next 5 years. That's going to introduce an extra 400 million tons of road freight, land freight. Maybe that was a Freudian slip saying road freight. But the bottom line is the rail network has to at least try and pick up some of that, and 90 million tons of 400 still leaves an extra growth of 310 million tons. So, there's enough grounds to be supportive of this initiative, and we hope that more of these TOCs come online, because at the end of the day, there just isn't much capacity to keep increasing this rate unless some serious infrastructural investment is made, whether it be road or rail.
Yeah. Now, when you look at these entrants, I mean, from what the minister says, there'll be 6 new entrants operating 15 routes on the North Corridor, which carries chrome and coal for export and domestic use. They will also allow a private operator on the iron ore corridor between Sishen and the Northern Cape and Saldanha Bay in the Western Cape. 2 new entrants will operate 2 routes in the Cape Corridor for transportation of manganese, the Northeastern Corridor, which handles coal, chrome, manganite, fuel, and containers. These are not corridors that are deemed unprofitable. These are corridors that are really deemed profitable for Transnet. Are we not cannibalizing Transnet here by introducing these players that are going to eat into the profits of Transnet?
Well, I think that access to the specific routes, and I think there's a total of around 40 of them that have been, earmarked for this initial phase. Transnet has got a margin that they have to look at. Now, obviously, introducing these new players into the network is not going to be free of charge. As I spoke about earlier, the economic regulation of transport also includes the cost of accessing the infrastructure. It's not going to be free. It's going to be business driven. And I'm sure the model that is being looked at is not a charity situation. There's money going to be involved. And of course, I think at the end of the day, we're hoping that it will not only increase volumes, but will also introduce capital into the system to improve and increase the capacity of rail to carry more freight moving forward. So I don't think the minister is oblivious to the challenge and not giving away profits that might potentially be gained by Transnet.
Now, we are, of course, looking at what you've mentioned earlier as we were coming in, that we are not oblivious to the fact that the infrastructure is battered. Who will find the infrastructure money? Where are we going to find it? Because, I mean, so far we know that the minister has gone to Treasury, got some 16 billion, and I think they're looking to get some 18 billion rands again in October. But it's not nearly enough in terms of the rehabilitation that needs to take place in this infrastructure.
Yes, you're quite right, Thabo. There's a lot of funding requirements. I think we're talking about an amount of about 30 billion rand per annum to maintain and hopefully improve the infrastructure that these new TOCs will be operating on. They've been introduced into the system without it being first corrected. So part of their role would be to help fund the vast amount of maintenance backlog that already exists. But I think at the end of the day, introducing the private sector into that space should help to introduce additional funding, because at the end of the day, we've got to make use of all the modes of transport to get our product from point A to B in the most cost-effective manner. And rail has the capacity to be cheaper than road freight. And of course, a properly maintained rail network should give us a far better return on investment than building roads and putting volumes of transport or heavy transport on those roads that it wasn't designed to carry.
So what are you going to be watching very closely? You're saying as the Road Freight Association, you will watch developments over the next 12 months. What are you keen on? What do you want to see happen procedurally and otherwise?
Well, the bottom line is that, before contracts can be concluded, most business-orientated people would want to know what the cost would be for entry into that space. And of course, the regulator, the economic regulator of transport, has a major role to play there. So there are some regulatory obstacles that need to get crossed in that time. Those 11 TOCs, although awarded the contracts, must still have the opportunity to say, well, once they've seen the numbers, is this viable? We'd like to say we hope it will be. We also want to see that the contracts are concluded in a beneficial manner for those private operators, because at the end of the day, they are business and they are there to make money, but they want to do it on the basis of successful business principles, which means we operate profitably while keeping costs down.
Kevin, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. The acting CEO of the Road Freight Association, Kevin van der Merwe, there on the introduction of private players into rail operations